my name's Alan, and I represent Multiplex, and we're a principal contractor. And part of my role within that principal contractor is to head up the Smart Buildings Council. Quite funny, never ever go third in a speech in smart buildings when we all have fairly much the same drives and aims. But anyway, so I'm here today to talk to you about basically how we see, as a builder, a principal contractor, how we have to deliver a smart building and the challenges that we find in delivering that. And it's quite unique. And we're the sandwich in the middle. Someone says, I want a smart building. Then someone at the end user turns around and says, yeah, I really wanted a smart building. And then we're the piece in the middle that has to make it smart, or certainly have the enablement. So you're going to see the same ideals, and this is normally where I ask the room what a smart building is. And just like Jules, because that's taken from Smart Score and Wired Score's definition, and just look at that from my perspective. People want to modify and use lighting via their smartphone or device. For me, a smart building is always the bridge of the enterprise, but with some seat belts. I'm always at the top end. But now look at that statement from my perspective. Delivers outstanding outcomes for all users. I don't see the end users very often at all, hardly ever. Yet I've got to go and make my building that I'm responsible for delivering before that PC for the outcomes from a user that I never see. And they're evolving expectations. So I've not only got to deliver a building for what I know, but I've also got to deliver a building for someone I don't know, and I don't know what their expectations are going to evolve into. It's quite different for me. This is a slide from one of our supply chain line management group, and I think it's really, really good. And it details the smart building architecture. This is from my perspective. And I'd like to cast your mind back probably 36 months, maybe 50 months. What was we all doing? A lot of us thought that smart buildings was simply at this bottom layer here. All of our systems working over a common network. And then that common network was a smart building. There's nothing like that. Come to now, 36, 50 months later, we're way off of that. Yet every single one of us, principal contractors, were down at that level because our clients wanted that as well. Yeah, and we have to evolve very, very quickly. The middle part, smart enablement, that's really, really important for us. Understanding, and people have talked about ontologies, and for us in 2023 as Multiplex, we're about to go and embark on standardising naming conventions, establishing a common ontology, making sure that our models are at level of detail 5 so that we can actually identify all of our assets within our building. If we're not at level of detail 5, we can't even be bothered to draw it. How the hell are we going to ever control it? And then those naming conventions coming back and being tagged into that model. So when we hand the building over, and hopefully, because of NABERS, because of BREEAM, because of WELL, because of LEED, and because of the right reasons, ESG, and as Jules said, the R, the resilience, we have to now provide a building that is able to be optimised because it has to be energy efficient, rightfully so. The user has to be able to use the building from the get-go. And that user could well be the FM team. And normally is the first hands on deck, if you will. Sorry, Peter. And what we handed over to Peter and his team in 2 years ago in this building is a lot different to what I'd want to be handing over now, because we've learned, and we're not perfect, and we're ever evolving. But we should have a building that is optimisable. And the reason that we do that is because we should now be installing the brokers between our systems. We should be establishing in our construction phases that data transfer, common naming and the ontology, making sure that our model is asset tagged and that digital twin can be then adopted. And then ultimately, we should be providing our FM team and all the end users go through the experiences with the developer at the get-go. We should be able to deliver a system that is able to be optimised in terms of the building from the get-go. We shouldn't have to have, I use Peter's as an example because he adopted it from us and shepherded it very well. But we shouldn't have to expect him to go and add that smart enablement and visualisation platform on. We have to deliver that now. And that's how our business is changing, and that's how our industry is changing. So we as principal contractors have to do that, and we have to understand that we've got to go and be in delivering level 3 or the upper level of the architecture. But to get there, we all have to change the way that we engage with each other and the way that we're appointed. And there is a subtlety, and there needs to be a change throughout our industry. Because we can't just sit there, pick up a ball at the end, just before we go out to bid, and then try and deliver an amazing outcome for all of our users that we don't see. So this is from WiredScore, and the data on why smart buildings are important. What matters to the end user? We all talked about connectivity, and it's true. It's 10% more important than the air quality that people breathe. Bear in mind that that data was taken, well, it's a couple of years ago, but it's about 3 years ago. But the fact of the matter is it was after the pandemic. That's amazing, isn't it? People come back to our office, 10% more are interested about the air that they breathe. Yes, connectivity is super important, but the air that they breathe is less important. That doesn't seem right, but nevertheless, the priority is connectivity. So that's the end user. That's the person that's working in the office. What does it mean to the employer? 98% of employers are saying that their staff can't deliver without connectivity, without technology. But then 88% are saying that they're seeing a shift in terms of this hybrid working, which is true. We should be able to have the ability, with the buildings that we're delivering, should have the ability and the flexibility to allow for hybrid working. That means that we've got to put technological foundations, and that's the bottom layer, if you will, of that architecture, in place to allow that to happen. We don't get a brief on that, hardly ever, about hybrid working and how the building needs to adapt for that. Yeah, we don't get a chance to put that technological foundation in place. The smart enablement isn't there for it because we haven't put it in. Now the shifts are changing. And as Jules said, return of investment. Cast your mind back 36 months, and I keep saying 36 months because it's a blink of an eye, but if I said 3 years ago, everyone would go, oh, it's a long time. 5% return of investment, and these are tricky targets to nail down, but they are buildings with and without WiredScore certification. Now, unashamedly, I'm here and I will promote WiredScore and I will promote SmartScore because it's the right thing to do, because that is the governance in terms of a smart building delivery. It's a benchmark. It says this is what smart needs to look like as a minimum. And it will evolve, but the fact of the matter is, for me, that's part of that governance of making sure that we have a standard of what a smart building needs to look like. 5%, if you said that to any developer, they'd snap your hand off, but that's WiredScore. 36 months' time, WiredScore is a common, and we're all embedded. SmartScore is going to be the difference in terms of return of investment, and that's why Multiplex, as a principal contractor, have invested heavily in making sure that SmartScore is promoted and that we are accredited SmartScore professionals in-house. So in 36 months' time, that won't be WiredScore. The return of investment will be what buildings are SmartScore accredited, because WiredScore is an embedded norm. Look, this is not meant to be targeted at anyone. You like this, Justin, and you had this is a light-hearted look, and this is my world when we talk about smart building. And it's difficult to budget. Let's stick to the traditional. These are the messages coming from a certain team. Maybe it's the client's team. Yeah, facets within them. This is not anybody within this room, but this is what we traditionally saw. It's a CEP package. It's all your risk. Well, we've got to go and design for outstanding outcomes that we know and that we don't know for users we never meet. And ambiguous statements. What I do want is smart. So you need to run with a smart building. Okay. I've been quite open and said multiplex, but this could be any principal contractor, and this is my world. MPX, MEP, consultants and integrators, we can't talk to each other because we're not in contract. Yet the design's being crystallised and it's being absolutely driven. And we're not part of it. MPX not clear on deliverables. It could be anybody. Late or no MSI appointment, absolutely shocking. And we deliver a Rolls Royce, and we deliver a Rolls Royce on every project. And then we don't give the client any means of locking it up, so we let anybody use it. Yeah, cyber security. And then let's get through to the supply chain. Give it an MSI role to their best project manager or designer. That's what we get. BMS providers promoting themselves as a smart platform. They're not. Tech suppliers telling everybody that their equipment is smart, but it's not. And it won't integrate, and it won't give the outcomes that we require. So how do we move forward? The current thinking in terms of procurement right now for us, developer sorts out a team, establishes his team or her team, and then they go and they come up with a scheme for the building. The professional team produces stage 2, stage 3. PQS drives and develops a cost plan against that. Principal contractor is appointed by the developer. The professional team produces stage 4, largely in isolation again because we're not part of that. And then we get a very, very small amount of time to deliver that smart building outcome, but we have no idea. And then we've also got to go out to bid, and we do all of that in a matter of weeks while we're trying to establish a project that, at this point, was going to take multiplex at a risk of £550 million. So we've got to do all that in a matter of weeks with people that we're never going to see in terms of end user. So how do we make a difference? One of our core values in multiplex is collaborative working and working practices. And it's funny because we've had that this morning in terms of talk. If we can get appointed under a special agreement earlier, if we have a special supply chain that is made up of the likes of WiredScore, smart buildings, consultants, platform deliverers, and indeed MSIs working for us and with us, we can stand level with the developer, and we can actually affect stage 2 and stage 3 positively. We can tailor. We can ensure that the client gets a tailored solution. We talk them through the user outcomes because we're at the earlier stage. Yeah, we can drive cost. We can drive cost to be spent in the right way and in the right elements to make sure that the user outcomes are absolutely protected and that it is largely future-proof. We can't future-proof everything. Yeah, when I delivered this building, they're now removing the Cisco equipment and updating it. That's fine, okay, but during my time, I can make a difference, and I can make a difference in terms of user outcome, and I can make a difference in terms of where we spend the money. If we maintain that early engagement, if we maintain that early engagement with our specialist supply chain, we can then drive the cost plan, the principal contractor then gets appointed for the rest of the project. We then complete the stage 4 as a combined principal contractor and professional team. We then go out to bid with an absolutely rock solid, fully agreed design. So what will be the key outcomes of that? Well, we can assist in terms of internal and external infrastructure, yeah, with our partnering agreements with fibre providers. We can make sure that we get connectivity into our buildings as early as UK Power On or before. Yeah, that's unheard of. And at the moment, in terms of, and I know this isn't smart, but infrastructure-wise, the likes of the digital fibre providers are struggling, the likes of Openreach and such, to actually deliver the amount of services that are being required. We're saying we can focus with our supply chain, which includes fibre providers, to make sure that those supplies come into your building earlier. The client has a specialist team that's going to be living for the life of the project and is fully focused on the client and the user's outcomes. Yeah, and making sure that we all agree what those outcomes are. And the client can benefit from a more comprehensive return in terms of cost. Plus, they can also guarantee or certainly assure that we're going to hit a wide score and a smart score accreditation equal or better than what we started in. For that to happen, principal contractors as a whole need to evolve. And this is a multiplex selling point. So what if we had a dedicated in-house smart building specialist department? What if we partnered with MSIs and smart building consultants? Yeah, and had them on our supply chain. Just imagine if that happened. What if we have agreement with WiredScore to promote and assist the client right the way through alongside us as accredited professionals to make sure they get the best outcome? What if the principal contractor is already armed fully with accredited professionals in WiredScore and SmartScore? And then just what happens if that principal contractor sits on the SmartScore Global Council and then can develop the guidance, the rules and the regulations in terms positively and positively affect the way that smart buildings are delivered and the way that smart buildings are graded? And what if we established an ELVS supply chain, a whole new supply chain that's fully accredited and then ultimately multidisciplined, so we're not breaking those smart assets and those smart workshops up? Well, if the principal contractor can do all of that, the benefits in-house in terms of the client, we can deliver a smart building and we can make sure that the incoming services, the connectivity, the R part of that building is realised. The client and the developer receive some really, really focused information, input, design, benefits from VE, not asset stripping, but real value added and tailored to the end user's experience, because that's where the focus needs to be. And if we can get involved earlier, we can make sure that they are protected, which currently we're not. And what if the client would then benefit from an early agnostic design? That's a big word. But the point being is that we're not here to sell one platform. And our supply chain and our evolving supply chain in terms of our specialists, not our trade contractors, are absolutely focused about selling an agnostic design and making sure that whatever horse is picked later on, it will be able to be delivered. And then ultimately the client can maximise their Wired and SmartScore accreditation. So, multiplex in terms of smart buildings and what next. The Smart Buildings Council is set up as the governance within our company, and we have had a real shake-up in terms of our supply chain. Everybody comes in for an interview, everybody pitches for the smart and the platforms that they are able to deliver, and they have to declare what they can't deliver as well. They have to be fully certified. If you're going to stay on the list, you've got to be SmartScore and WiredScore accredited. And we want to make sure that we all meet and share our lessons together. Yeah, it's a whole different collaborative working frame. We're now moving on and then taking on the specialists that are DAS, smart building specialists and MSIs, and making sure that we partner with those. We establish and get a chance, and thank you, Mike, for the budget, but we get to test emerging technologies as well. And we have good fun with that. And then we share the outcomes of what that new technology is. We get in manufacturers, they come and do a talk, they also go and give us samples, go and give us systems, and then we'll put them on our projects. Because it's really, really important. Because for us, we need to make sure that we're moving the dial. And we're talking about mesh technologies that you was mentioning earlier, and wireless smart metering, all sorts. Standardising digital delivery, 2023 coming here soon. Collaborations with in-house specialist teams to make sure that our naming conventions are correct and that we're hitting standards and that our governance is correct and that we're establishing best practice and making sure that our digital twin is able, or a client can pick up a digital twin from us because we're at level of detail 5, and that's a minimum for multiplex. We're collaborating internally at giving the end user the experiences and the use that they want. Smart in construction. We all talk about end users. We have a few hundred people, nay, 1,000 people on our projects. Our projects last up to 3 years. And Mike's very, very clear on this. They're our end users. Yet we pay very little mind to them in terms of connectivity, and it matters to us. Connectivity during construction matters. And I'd like to sit, ultimately, is to establish and sit with WiredScore and SmartScore and make a standard for what smart in construction needs to look like. So we now have Wi-Fi across all our projects. Energy efficiency, because smart in construction needs to be ESG and R. We make sure that ultimately we have smart metering and that we can turn on and off and control the environment, because we're putting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of equipment in, and we have to make sure that that environment in a temporary sense is maintained. And we're doing that via smart locks, via smart sensors, and then ultimately making sure that our environment in a temporary sense is maintained. Early smart building and energisation. Not one person in this room has or considers really what smart in construction and delivering a set of systems in terms of smart buildings requires from a multiplex perspective. We do, but everyone's got different perspectives, which is really, really good, and we should be learning lessons from each other. Some of the points that we've gone through, making sure that we have IP rated cabinets. These are all very, very small points, but for us, if you asked anybody that owns a data center to energize their Cisco switches or whatever, or their digital and active equipment, they would be absolutely horrified. But we have to have that running because that is our network for all of our systems, and we have to commission the building super early. So IP rated cabinets. Battery technology, because our network has to be resilient and it has to be operational way before power is rolled out. This building was an absolute classic example of that. Every single one of these switches had to be up and running, and the building was still in a concrete shell. In-house specialism, we have a prefabrication council, and they are running at the moment schemes and developing fully fitted out technical spaces, FCC rooms, MER rooms. We're good at a three-letter acronym in this industry, but security rooms and technical hubs to make sure that they are in a condition that doesn't meet or match the current condition of the project. And then ultimately, what comes next for us, potentially life safety, combined networks, fire rated, to make sure that the PAVA, the EVC, the fire alarm, the generator control, the SCADA all communicates across one common fibre. Okay? So that's what's next for us. So that's a principal contractor's view on a smart building. Thank you.